Pretty good.
Right on. Okay. So I like to stop here. Quick little history of the area where we are today. Once again called the Camp Hale Valley. Got its name in 1942 when the U.S. set up the first ever Special Forces Ski Mountaineering Division. The 10th Mountain Division was formed here. Okay. Original intent to go to the high mountains of Italy in the Second World War and defeat the Nazis, who had a special mountaineering force. So before we created this base, we were trying to beat them with our regular infantry in the mountains, and they just kept getting pushed back by their special mountaineering division. So created this base to train our soldiers in skiing, mountaineering, and rock climbing. Trained up to 14,000 troopers in this valley. So when we go back in, there's pictures of what this base looked like when it was a base. Buildings as far as you can see through these valley, 2-story buildings all throughout here. So pretty cool. Tight. All right, perfect. Shut it down. Well done, gang. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Try
and take this out.
We got some lined up down there. So those are the play fields we were in earlier. See the snowmobile? See them all lined up down there? There we go. So you can see where we were playing earlier, the field we're in. There's a bunch of snowmobiles lined up, about ready to go down there. You can also see on the far end of the field, you see all the little doors down there? Yeah. So those concrete bunkers. So when this was built, it was built during wartime. They were slightly afraid we might get attacked on our own soil and attack this base. So if they did, they made those bunkers to store their munitions. So each one of those is a 5-foot thick concrete embankment to keep from a chain reaction happening if they were to try to blow up any of our munitions or weapons that they stored here on base. It's also their rifle range. So all those berms I told you about, soldiers would sit on those berms and fire back this way towards the bunkers, towards this hillside. Other soldiers would stand behind the concrete embankment with big poles with targets on them. So what's really interesting, I was like, that's 1942, 1960. I was like, oh, that's archaic. I took out some vets 2 years ago, some Army guys, and they said most of them, that's how they still do their target practice, is they stand behind a wall with a target on it. Really? Yep. Yep, cheapest way to do it. So, cool. So we get a great look and lay of the land of the Camp Hale Valley here. So, reason they chose this valley is it is at 9,200 feet. Great elevation. Gets usually get about 6 or 7 months of snow here on the ground. So the soldiers that trained here came from all walks of life. They came from farms and cities and suburbs and all that. And a lot of them had never skied or been in the mountains before, so they trained them in skiing and rock climbing, mountaineering, and they fell in love with being in the outdoors, just like I did. That's why I came out here. So when they came back from the war, they didn't want to go back to the farms or the cities, so they stayed in Colorado, became the driving force in the Colorado ski industry. So Vail was founded by a man named Pete Seibert. Pete Seibert trained here, went off to war, and came back. During their training, they actually would hike from here all the way to the back bowls of Vail, ski the back bowls of Vail, and then hike on back and spend several days doing that. But he knew, he was like, well, man, those are the most amazing place to ski I've ever been. So he got the funding together, the permits required, and in 1962, created Vail. So, which is why you guys came here to come ski at Vail. So all started in this base here. So not only did he start Vail, there were other resorts that were started by other vets, but he himself got his buddies together to start the villages. So he's like, well, I'm going to start the lift in the resort. I don't have the means or the funds. Why don't you come start a hotel? Why don't you come start a restaurant? So the restaurants and villages and hotels were actually all started by other 10th Mountain vets that were just friends of his and kind of didn't want to go home either and be ski bums. So yeah, we have like I said, the driving force in the Colorado ski industry all came out of this valley right behind us. So, pretty cool. And then the last thing, the valley, when they found it, was a big marsh, a big swamp. So it wasn't going to make a good base. So what they did was bulldoze a ditch right down the center, diverting the Eagle River, and you can see it lined by the willow bushes. We kind of came in on that road. So they diverted it to a straight line, which no river ever runs in a straight line. And then backfilled in all the low and marshy areas with the surrounding hillsides. They dug out and pulled in the hillsides to the tune of 2 million cubic yards of backfill to fill in the swamp and low areas.
You're lucky I'm pumped doing this right now. Otherwise I'd be super pissed. But